Welcome to the Rusted Garden Homestead. This video is all about 5 crops you can plant in October and November. Now I'm in Maryland Zone 7. Cool weather crops. These are crops that can take a frost. They like the cold weather. They prefer 55-degree nights, 70-degree days. But in Maryland, we're going to be getting into the 40s at night. The temperatures are coming down. Freezes will be coming along with the frosts. These are 5 crops that can really take the cold. They can take when the ground freezes. So these are kind of like, maybe you missed the earlier cool weather crops. Your garden now is becoming really cold. These are 5 great crops to grow October, November, when the temperatures are dropping into the 40s at night, into the 30s. Maybe the days are going to be in the 50s and 60s. These are also wonderful crops you can grow through the winter depending on where your garden is. This is a setup here. It's a low tunnel. I have a video that I just did on it. This will extend your season by 60 to 90 days. I will link the video to show you how to build this. And you can grow these same crops right under here, which means you can grow longer into the winter. The crops that we're going to talk about, of course, garlic. Plant your garlic cloves now. I'll show you how to do that. And then we're going to go over pak choy, spinach, radishes, and mustard greens. Forgot the last one. These are crops that can, again, really take that cold weather. They're going to do really well in the latter part of fall, early winter. Let's start with radishes. They really enjoy the cool weather. They can take colder temperatures. And you may have noticed, depending on where your garden is, the cool weather crops can get really started in August, September, and again October, December. But as the cold gets colder, into the 40s at night, 30-degree nights, these are 5 crops that do really, really well. Garlic you're not going to harvest till next year. The rest of the crops are going to be ready anywhere from after germination 30 to 60 days. Please subscribe. I'll teach you how to grow food. In 2025, I'll be showing you how to start stuff indoors, grow outdoors, take care of pests and problems. Again, check out the video if you're interested in extending the season and seeing how I built this little cold frame. And I'm going to be using the cold frame in here. This is all you would do. Just forget that the frame is right here. For radishes, every 2 inches, about a 1/4 inch deep, and you're just going to make a row like that. And we'll do this in real time. I just want to show you how easy it is. And then I do about 2 to 3 inches. I do the next row. And we're already, at 2 rows, and then we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. That's 33 radishes we can get in there. We could even squeeze more in there, but I'm just going to leave that space. Radishes I'd like to put in 2 seeds per hole. All right, I dropped in 2 radishes per planting hole. Again, about a 1/4 inch deep. You don't have to over worry about it. This is 33 plantings of radishes with 2 seeds per hole. Maybe you get 50 or something like that. You can thin them down if you want. Sometimes they grow a little bit bigger, but with 2 seeds per hole, 2 inches around the plant, around each planting hole, an inch or so, the radishes will push each other to the side. And then you just harvest them, leave one in there, they get bigger. My point being is that you can leave 2 seeds per hole. You can increase the production. It's really up to you. Once you have that, let me just make a line here so I know where they are. Just cover them over and just water them in. Watering's going to vary based on how much rain you get, cool temperatures, but you don't really have to water frequently. All right, let me show you some of the radishes that are already growing, and then we'll get to planting the spinach. Radishes are going to germinate with the temperatures getting into the 60s and 70s really within 5 to 7 days. So they germinate quickly. Anywhere from 25 to 35 days after germination are going to be ready. And this is what your radishes are going to look like. They grow quickly. A lot of people don't know. If you saute the leaves, you can also eat the leaves. Spinach does really well here in Maryland Zone 7. In fact, it will grow through January and February. It's really, really hardy. As the colder temperatures come, the freezes are prolonged, the ground freezes. So when you get about an inch of ground freeze where the plants connect to the ground, the roots come out, if that freeze is solid, that's what kills off a lot of your cool weather crops. Spinach is really resistant to that. So it's a great crop to plant later in the fall. You can grow through winter depending on where your garden is. You can space your holes out for the spinach anywhere from 4 to 12 inches depending on how large you want it to get. I like to go about 6 inches either way, either direction. So hole, 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 about 6 inches over there, a couple more holes. About a 1/2 inch deep. You don't need to over worry about that. There's already 2 seeds per hole, and I like to put in 2 seeds whenever I'm growing anything, because you don't want to wait around for 1 seed to germinate. You can always thin the plants down. The closer you plant them together, the more dense it's going to be. Maybe they don't get as large, but you can harvest spinach at any time. So I'll be harvesting this when it's a little bit smaller. Another trick is the spacing. Again, is about 6 inches. I could just harvest this one out. So this plant and this plant now will have more space to grow larger, maybe grow to full size. It's really up to you based on how you want to harvest, when you want to harvest, on the spacing of the different crops. Spinach is just a great late fall crop, colder temperature crop to get into your garden. It'll germinate nicely at the 60-70 degree temperatures, and it can take anywhere from 7 to 10 days. It takes longer to germinate than your radishes and the other crops that I'm showing you today. But once they're in the hole, just cover everything over, and now I have spinach over here, radishes over here. Let me show you some spinach that's coming up so you'll know what to look for. This is what your spinach seedlings will look like. These are probably after germination, probably 2 to 3 weeks old. Take anywhere as little as 40 days after germination to 65 days to mature. And again, it depends on when you want to harvest them. But if you have a lot of spinach, you can pick the leaves when they're smaller. You get plenty of spinach for your needs. 2 seeds per hole. I could thin them down to 1 if I want a larger plant. But again, I like to grow these to maybe like this size, and I'll just be taking leaves as they're to the size that I want. So I don't mind putting plants closer together and putting a few more seeds into the hole and leaving them there. If you want these to be larger, remove one of the plants. Mustard greens do really well in the cold temperatures. I like to space them out 8 to 12 inches. They can get quite large, up to 2 feet tall. I have some over here I already planted, and you can see back there, there's 2 plants. Right in there, there's 3 plants, look like a seed fell. You can thin them down to 1 plant. Depending on how large they get, you can leave multiple seeds in there, but you do want to give them more spacing than the other crops. So, you know, minimum maybe 8 inches in between the planting holes, 1/4 inch to 1/2 inch deep. I already put them in, so I put 1 right there, 2, 3, 4. You don't need a lot of plants because you can only eat, I think, so many mustard greens. They do have a spice, little peppery burn to them when you eat them raw in salads. If you saute them down, they have a nice flavor, but that heat goes away. That radish burn flavor kind of goes away. I don't mind it, so just be aware that, you know, it might be a little bit spicy. 2 seeds, 3 seeds per hole, thin them down as you wish, and just cover them over. I'll talk about fertilizing in general at the end of the video, but generally speaking, your beds are pretty well set up from all the fertilizers and compost and stuff that you've been putting in here over the spring, summer, early fall, etc. All you really have to do is water these in once with any water-soluble fertilizer and just let them do their thing. The next crop is pak choy or bok choy. It's a Chinese cabbage, and you can get an idea what it looks like. It stays kind of thin, can get anywhere from 6 to 8 inches if it's smaller to 12 inches tall. I like to space the planting holes, again, 1/4 inch deep, about 6 to 8 inches apart. I did drop in 2 to 3 seeds per planting hole, but because this gets large, I'm going to definitely want to thin it down to 1 plant. I like putting in multiple seeds. You get tons of the seeds in a pack for the pak choy and the bok choy. Thin them down to 1. You're not wasting anything. Again, you don't want to wait around for a single seed to germinate, and it doesn't. These will germinate very quickly in the 60-70 degree day temperatures. Again, 5 to 7 days. They're going to mature after germination anywhere from 45 to 60 days. I really like the bok choy and pak choy for later fall, early winter. In fact, if I try and plant this in really later August, early September, it's too hot for it. And because the roots warm up from the hot sun, we still are getting into the 80s, the plant flowers, it bolts real quickly. So you don't get a beautiful head of bok choy or pak choy, the Chinese cabbage. So this really prefers the colder temperatures. It likes the 40 degree nights, 55, 60 degree days. So this is something that I always plant later in the fall or really, really early spring. I don't have any examples of the pak choy yet because I'm just putting it in for the first time. A bonus plant to plant is arugula. This is arugula that I planted back maybe from my September video on cool weather crops. Look how large it is. It's growing really well. The flavor gets better as it gets colder. It's a little bit too peppery and spicy for me during the warmer season. This can grow, you know, really throughout the season, but middle of August, middle of July, It's just really strong. It has this very intense peppery taste. As the cold weather comes, it milds out, more of a nutty flavor, little spiciness to it. Absolutely delicious. But you could plant arugula right now. It does well in the cold too. That would be your bonus number 6 plant. Also, arugula, this is planted closely together, maybe every, I'm looking in there, 3 inches or so with 4-inch rows. I'm going to be harvesting it at this size. A single plant, if you just put one plant here, will get 2 feet tall. It gets really big, so depending on how you want to grow it, space it differently. But I like it when the leaves are about that size. For the pak choy, the bok choy, just cover it over, water it in, and they're going to be good to go. All right, so let's get to the garlic. I'm going to plant some garlic right into here. Here's 3 more bonus plants. These are dandelions. Dandelions are going to be popping up everywhere. They like the cool temperatures. They just don't germinate really well during the summer. So you're going to see a lot of them coming up in the cooler temperatures of the fall. I like to grow them, you know, one plant like this is going to get massive. The greens are delicious. They're a nice bitter. You can grow them as a green. So you can find dandelions that are around your property, put them into your beds. They're going to be delicious. This is endive. This was planted about, I don't know, 6 weeks ago, and we have some loose leaf lettuce. Lettuces, endives, dandelions, your 3 bonus plants, they can go in now too, depending on where your garden is. I like planting these better beginning of September, later August here in Maryland, because if a heavier freeze comes, it can take out your lettuces and your endives. Endive is pretty sturdy. You're really going to have to plant these different cool weather crops different times in your garden, take notes, and just see how they do as the temperatures get colder and colder and colder into the night. See how long they last, and then you can select the best cool weather crops for your late fall garden or your early winter garden. But we have dandelions, endive, your loose leaf lettuces. The garlic is going to go right into here. So this soil is already loose, and for garlic here in Maryland, you just want to go down about 2 inches. 4-inch spacing I found works really well, and drop them in. When this lettuce is done, the garlic will be coming up, you know, next spring. When you put in your garlic, just to keep in mind, you want a cold period. Your hardneck garlic, the garlic that has a hard stem in the middle, also creates garlic scapes. They need a period of cold. So the winters here in Maryland are perfect for that. They just develop better bulbs, you know, multiple cloves, the bulb of garlic, by having this prolonged cold period. So you want to get your hardneck garlic into the ground in October, November, even early December, as long as the ground can be worked. These are cloves, so you break a bulb up and they form these cloves. The bottom looks like this, that's where the roots are, and then top is usually pointed. If you can't figure it out, just plant it on the side. It'll be perfectly fine. So you take the root side down, you're going to press this down about 2 inches. I like getting the larger cloves, press it down 2 inches into the soil, and then the same thing. Third one's going to go right in here, and you can do this 4 inches apart, 6 inches apart, something like that. Cover it over, water it in, and I will be doing that between these rows. So this will produce the lettuce, the leafy greens, the garlic will do its thing. All you want your garlic to do now in October, November is to establish nice roots. You may see some greenery come up. That's fine. It's going to get beat up over the winter. Come spring, it's going to do really well. You don't really need to feed or fertilize the garlic now. You can, you know, you can mix in some organic granular fertilizer there. You can water it in with a water soluble. Come spring, we'll give it a big drink of water-soluble fertilizer. We'll give it everything it needs, and the garlic's going to do well. Again, hardneck garlic needs that cold period. The softneck garlic that's usually grown like in California, doesn't have that hard neck, doesn't produce garlic scapes. You could put that in now also, but it really doesn't need that prolonged cold period. So a lot of times I plant my softneck garlic early in the spring when the soil can be worked. You just don't have to do that. But I would get your hardneck garlic now, get it into the ground. Other cool weather crops, you kind of miss the window here in Maryland. This is cauliflower. I also have broccoli that looks like this. The crowns themselves, if a prolonged heavy freeze comes, it's going to damage the crowns. So you really have to get these started here in Maryland back in really August as transplants. And you want the crowns to start forming now so they still get maybe the mild frost, but they're not getting the heavy freeze. So kind of miss the window for broccoli and cauliflower. Other cool weather crops you missed probably are peas, definitely here in Maryland. Peas can take a frost, the leaves can take a frost, but the peas themselves and the flowers really can't take a frost. So you want to have these to this size with a good 4 weeks before your first frost comes in, so that you get the delicious pea pods and such. So it's really too late to plant peas. If you want to get pods, you can plant peas now, and you can harvest the tendrils. They taste delicious. They taste just like peas. You can put them in salads. But if you plant them now, you're going to be growing them more for the leaves than for the actual pods. Fertilizing is pretty straightforward. Like I was saying, these beds are well prepped. If you want to subscribe and follow me, I'll show you how I prep the beds at the end of the fall, early spring, how I take care of them throughout the summer. I use a lot of compost. Anytime that you're planting, if you have tons of compost, please go ahead and use it. So I could set this bed up, mix in some compost, put down like an inch or two across the top, mix it in, plant everything that I just showed you today. You just don't have to put in a lot of the organic granular fertilizers and other fertilizers you're spending on. Always put in compost. Compost not only feeds the plants, it builds the soil, supports the microbes. So compost is always golden. The plants that I planted today, if you wanted to, if you felt like maybe your soil was overly depleted, you could sprinkle down some organic granular, mix it into that top 2-4 inches, but you really just have to water it in with a water-soluble fertilizer. You could do that now at first watering, or you could wait till it's growing a little bit, but you don't need to overdo it. If the plants look like they're struggling for some reason, hit them with the water-soluble the second time. You're not going to cause any problems. There's no fouls. Just give them a little bit more nitrogen. They're going to take off. I already have beets in, peas are in, carrots back there. That's cabbage, kale over here. Those are the cool weather crops I planted earlier in the season, middle of August in some cases, early September in other cases. There is that timing piece that I was talking about, so experiment, put in your different cool weather crops, see how they do, see how the temperatures help them out or hinder them based on if it's too hot when you plant early, sometimes they bolt. If it's too cold towards the end, they don't fully develop. So the only way to figure that out is to experiment and to take notes. Please subscribe. I'll show you again how to grow food, how to take care of an entire garden. Please check out my seed shop at therustedgarden.com, and please check out my new blog, therustedgardenblog.com. I'll be putting in posts this week. There's already some there on cool weather crops you can put into your garden, and I'll be putting in other posts each week that are time appropriate. So if you do subscribe to my channel, you're going to see me growing in real time. The posts will be in real time, the planting will be in real time, the tending and care will be in real time. And just a quick note, I love showing this section off. These are tomatoes that grew out of the compost pile. They're doing amazingly well. There's no disease on here. There's no real problems on here. You can see that they're forming right in the back. What's cool about this is I'm not taking care of them. If that frost wasn't coming, these would be amazing plants. These have not been sprayed, they have not been watered, they are just left to grow in a compost. That is the power of compost. You know, slow, steady feed, great for microbes and soil biology. The plants do really well. Thanks again for watching.